So we're live. This is the cold open. I know.
Oh, wow.
I thought I'd take you by surprise like that. I did give you a few seconds warning. See, Rich is there doing his hair.
Yeah.
This is the cold open because I just wanted to say, after doing what must be about 20 of these now, I changed the opening credits without letting anyone know. And I've got to say the feedback on the new music was mixed. Somewhat.
It wasn't
So
me.
I'm not going to say who it was. So today, Rich, I'd like to pick a number between 1 and 5. You are choosing the new intro for this week. Just pick
4.
it. It doesn't matter because I'm just hitting the buttons at random. That's all right. Like an over-caffeinated monkey. Let's go. See you on the other side.
See you on the other side.
Slightly new and different music for the intro there. I thought Rich was being abusive in the private comments that we have here until I realized what the reference was. Welcome. This is season 2, episode 2. And I have checked. Yep, we don't talk about it. So it's number 2.
Yeah, got it.
We had a bit of a technical issues on one. Not that, isn't thoroughly planned weeks ahead. Today we're talking about how many eggs in one basket, mitigating risk in marketing. We recently saw that Facebook went down. Was it Monday, Tuesday? Went down for about 6 hours, taking down Instagram, taking down WhatsApp, and having quite a large impact. I think Twitter made the most of it. They had a lovely tweet saying hello everyone, which I thought was fabulous. But before we get into that, let's have some introductions. Rich,
thank you. Hello everybody. Yes, Rich Dibbins from Staxton Digital, worked in the legal sector for over 10 years now. Digital marketing for law firms, specifically around their social media marketing and getting engagement for them. So driving all that engagement, not creating any of this dross content, which I keep seeing, which I'm going to come on to shortly. But yeah, loving working in the legal sector, for helping law firms with their digital marketing.
I think it's going to be a fun one this week. And also, we have the fabulous, the wonderful, the one and only Simon, Digital 100 Marshall. He has actually changed his name by deed poll. That is official now. Hello, Simon.
I should do. Although it may come as a surprise to Midge. I think she'd be a bit disappointed. Hi, I'm Simon Marshall. I, like Rich Dibbins, love lawyers. I love working in the legal sector. I love working with bright, hard-working people. I was thinking how lucky I am earlier on today. Really, genuinely, we are very lucky. We get to work with some of the brightest people in the country and then help them with digital marketing. And I was talking about it today, and that partnering thing that we do. We're so lucky, Other people don't get to do that necessarily. So if you're a lawyer and I work with you, I love you. I think you're brilliant. Thank you for using us all the time as well. Anybody else who wants great stuff, these guys are great options as well. So, yeah.
Oh,
thank you.
So kind, so generous. Thank you, Simon. And I am David SAYCE, digital marketing consultant with Paper Gecko. I help with digital strategy and also undertake a lot of projects around migrations of websites and website audits as well. In fact, it has been said, I put the grace into migrations.
That
I tell
needs to
you,
be on a dinner plate somewhere.
It needs to be on a Telegraph
it
t-shirt somewhere.
needs to be on a t-shirt somewhere. That's for sure. Unfortunately we don't have Cass joining us this week,
No.
so it will just be the three of us. We're still pining since Charlotte left as well, so you're just stuck with us, unfortunately.
She's busy at conferences nowadays. Yeah,
I know. I've seen her. I've seen her activity on LinkedIn. Yeah. Speaking of which, hello, LinkedIn user. That might be Charlotte. Who knows? So, what we're going to talk about? We were going to talk about the whole issue with Facebook. This is something that I remember from 10, 12 years ago, as Facebook really started off, that idea of the paid, owned, earned, and so many businesses putting their businesses onto Facebook, that rented environment. And I think one of the things that came out of this was, if that is your main source of business and it goes down, 6 hours is a pretty lengthy amount of time. It sounds like it was quite a technical issue that they had, but these aren't uncommon. We've had Cloudflare go down recently. We've had Anktomy. They had DNS issues as well. That knocked out a whole load of websites. And I remember back in the day when it was often the undersea cables being cut and most of Australia losing internet access, which is thankfully not something that happens too much now. But it does say something about how best to mitigate the risk within that environment. I mean, Rich, you're the social media guru here. I mean, did you just take the day off? What happened?
No. Well, first off, I jumped. I was one of the many. I did do a post at 11:30. I posted the 3 amigos have gone down, and then I put the 3 amigos back. But it kind of did make me think. A large portion of my audience are on LinkedIn, but I do have an audience on Instagram as well. But it kind of also goes to, you can kind of look at it on the other side. If you've only got a website that generates you business and that goes down, what do you do if you don't have a social media presence? And which quite a few law firms do, their DNS issues or their domain registration runs out or they haven't renewed it. And they're rushing around and scrabbling. How do they get the message out? Twitter did great. And I just love the whole Twitter jumped in, I like to order 11.3 million nuggets, please, for all my friends. I'm surprised I didn't see more on LinkedIn, other than obviously people shouting about it. But yeah, no, it is a case of, if you were an Instagram influencer for those 6 hours, I bet it was, excuse my French here, squee bum time for them. They didn't really know what they were going to do or how or when it was going to come back because there was just no communications. It was a total Facebook blackout.
And it was a long time. I mean, normally these sort of outages, 40 minutes, maybe an hour.
Revenue dropped. The share price dropped by $6.3 billion in those 6 hours. It was obscene. So it wasn't just affecting obviously the businesses, but Facebook financially suffered huge losses. Which I'm sure
the market. Here's the thing though: the market price did, but the advertising revenue, it was shown afterwards, had carried on. So people were still being charged for their adverts, even though they couldn't be shown to anyone as well. So there's something weird gone on. I mean, I've got to be careful and caveat that because I haven't looked into it in too much depth. But I read a story the other day that really worried me. It's like, well, what are people being charged for? You can't access the adverts, and what's going on? But a bit like Rich and David, I was deeply concerned and did wonder about the eggs in one basket thing. It's no coincidence that we've gone back and looked at the email marketing list this week as well. Nothing converts like email, they say. We all say it again and again. David says he hates dealing with email marketing campaigns.
No.
Sometimes the idea of it anyway. But we all know fundamentally, if you don't have your own backbone in place, you have your own email marketing group in place, then it's a mistake as well. I think Rich is right to highlight web as another channel as well. But having just that one channel, I think would be a horrendous move as well, especially if you're massively reliant on that channel. I think LinkedIn. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point that we suffered an outage as well. I say it's unlikely, but it's possible. And what would happen to to each of us that day if that happens well. It would be, yeah, big continuity step. If Wikipedia goes down, all those kids can't do their homework. You know, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. If LinkedIn goes down, what are people going to, you know, where are people going to share pictures of them, you know, the water fountain?
It was only a few years ago that everyone was using AWS servers.
Yeah.
And a few times that went down, and it was incredible. It was knocking out Netflix, Dropbox, a lot of different companies. But as you say, I think, you know, I think it comes back, it is that planning, it's the business continuity, it's the crisis management side of things. Email, I think, you know, for a start, the ROI on that is absolutely fabulous. You have generally a lot more control over that environment. Web can be a tricky one, because I know I've done this with a few projects where building out a fail-safe mechanism where the system senses the DNS failure and falls back to basically a copy of that website on a completely different server. So you're basically doubling your website costs for that, but it meant they were never going to go down.
And also, some firms have WhatsApp. They use WhatsApp with their clients.
Yeah.
I know that's probably not strictly sensible to do that. So I'm curious to know what some of the law firms, you know, they Facebook, they got their marketing, Instagram, but their comms with some of their clients, they're unable to do it. Obviously, they could just text them. But with the whole communication with WhatsApp, you know, just being knocked out, that affected families as well, unfortunately. Yeah. My family, my mum, bless her, you know, as much as she texts, she uses our family group to keep in touch with all the kids. So I did what any son would do who works in digital, picked up the phone and called her and said, look, WhatsApp is down.
Oh.
All right, it's down. Don't worry, it'll be back up in some time. So yeah, I think it also would have affected a few people personally that they weren't able to access. You know,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because when DLA had the big outage a few years ago and they had the cyber attack, didn't they, on the systems, I think they fell back to WhatsApp as a way to tell everyone. I think it was WhatsApp they used, wasn't it, David?
It could have been. I don't remember.
Because I was OC at that point in time, and they had this huge outage, and yeah, it was really big for them. But there was a really good piece in the Lawyer about the anatomy of how they recovered from that. So I think it wiped them out for like 5 or 6 days. Like a huge thing. But Rich is right. I mean, if you've got WhatsApp groups going on, there's documents happening in the groups and stuff. So you can't access something that's a court document and the judge is asking you something. It's not just embarrassing. It's like, you know, it's like mission critical stuff, this as well. Not just the website having gone down or Facebook having gone down, but WhatsApp, you know, what we've learned from it is that's not a backbone that you should be basing your corporate comms on, I don't think, for delivery, right? Maybe for operations internally, you know, for like, you know, everyday kind of stuff as well. And I've seen it used really well within law firms. But it's more a kind of, you know, notification kind of thing. Like, you know, everybody's, this is on, or that's happening, or come to this thing, or, you know, so-and-so's birthday or whatever. That's fine, right? But, you know, things that are mission critical. I think marketing guys as well, quite often as well, point the finger at the IT directors to say they're regularly, they stop us from doing this, they stop us from doing that, they prevent us from having these systems in place with that. And I think we've all probably at times in our career said, the IT directors, whatever. But that day, didn't they look wise? Didn't they look like the ones who got it right? Because tell you what, those systems don't fall over very often in comparison, and they keep it going as well. And the comms channels that they choose to use, you know, seem to withstand that kind of outage, as it were, as well.
I actually won a client off the back of Facebook being down because I explained to them that if all your content's on Facebook, now's a better time than any to start embracing LinkedIn. And he went, so what do I need to do? And I just simply went, instruct me to coach your team. And he went, right, let's get a date in the diary. And it was just an off the cuff comment. And he just went, right, let's get you in. Let's get that booked kind of thing. I said, because otherwise, yes, your Facebook's down. They had charity events that they were doing. They had a corporate event that, or a family event that they were meant to be doing. They had legal drop-in, you know, clinics that they do every Wednesday. And all of this they were like panicking. And they were like, how can we move this? I said, just put it over onto LinkedIn. Just move it onto LinkedIn and keep it in a couple of areas, or you can put it onto Twitter kind of thing. Took a couple of hours work to do it, but eventually we got it over there and they were like, they could have some normality with their social. But this is where I fully drove home. Don't keep everything on Facebook because Facebook owns so much of the social presence at the moment. I said, if you keep it all within that realm, it's gone. We could have another blackout and, you know, everybody scrambling for lifeboats. So yeah,
There
the
was
LinkedIn and Twitter became the lifeboats of social media that week.
They
I think it
did.
is.
The big other challenge we saw, sorry, David, quickly, bear in mind that Facebook tends to be number one in the world now for global rankings for website, Google number two. It's normally the other way around, but actually I've seen it quite a lot in the rankings, David, that you know that I share. But the reason being that those two and G Plus are single sign-in logins. So when Facebook was out, that login was out, and it meant that all the systems you were using, where you'd use that SSL, whatever it might be, to get in, if you're using your Facebook one, you can't get into Xero. You can't get into all these other systems, and suddenly it's multiplied. And I think that reliance on the system was one thing. David, you might want to finish, but I was going to take us away from digital and talk about it in other areas of marketing as well in a minute. Terry, you're going to make a point.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's about having those other options of channels, and quite rightly, as you say, it isn't always just digital. This is one example of something that happened very quickly, recovered in all consideration pretty quickly too. But some of the business continuity preparation that I've done with firms, it's been around longer term. We used to come up with these scenarios, and of course, here in London, it was the terror, the bomb attack that we had to think about. What happened if something happened to the building? Funnily enough, a few years ago, I put zombie apocalypse into one of the scenarios, which actually fits the whole COVID thing pretty well, I must say. And it's having those multiple routes to stay in touch and to be available.
It's like 28 pieces of litigation later.
I
was thinking though, reliance on clients. What about reliance on clients, right? What about reliance on suppliers? What about any of those things that eggs in one basket? So look, let's deal with clients for a minute. If you've got a client who's responsible for more than half your revenue, what happens if they do a Facebook on you? What happens if they turn off the tap as well? And it did happen years ago. Do you remember, David? It's probably before Rich's time, but
he's not that young.
One of the Welsh firms, David, it was on the NHS LA panel, and they just went, and it was off, and then suddenly, 75% of their revenue was just switched off one day because of a procurement they'd missed out on, and the firm effectively disbanded as a result of it. Or certainly restructured anyway as well. So I don't think it's just a digital issue. I don't think it's just a social media issue. I think it's something that we need to be wary of anyway. In general, Pareto's kind of 80-20, everyone always talks about it like it's a good thing. But there are threats in there as well, aren't there, about being massively reliant on that much of your revenue as well. And suppliers, David, that I've said in the past that I think that whoever's building your website probably shouldn't be the person who's marking the homework about building that website. I love the fact that you're completely separate from that, and we do that too. We won't build the site and then mark our own homework because you're not qualified to do those two things as well. We spotted some. I've got to tell you privately, I've got to spot some crazy things over the last few days. I've seen 3 new website launches over the last few days that will make your eyes pop out your head, David, or maybe make you cry. I don't know which, but guess what? The homework was being marked by the same people as well. Too many eggs in one basket, and it's disastrous, really.
And I think some of this also comes down to doing the planning beforehand. I think, as we've spoken about, the thought initially of Facebook going down is one thing. It's a social media site with some cat pictures, but then there's the business side, then there's the login, then there's the ads, then there's WhatsApp. There's so much more to it. And, I wonder how many people were caught out completely unaware of how big this ecosystem is and hadn't thought that, if Facebook goes down, well, we'll just use WhatsApp. We've always got Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, the failovers were triple. So living in a Facebook world, that's why I with the Instagram, with the LinkedIn groups, I'm a member of groups on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and just everybody just migrated over to LinkedIn and carried the conversation on over there, kind of thing. But yeah, if a private client firms are going to be predominantly on Facebook and Instagram, I think there needs to be more private client firms looking at LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has historically been the commercial shall we say, for law firms. But now it's encompassing everything. But yeah, how do you prevent that happening? I always say it's not a case of if it happens again, it's when it happens again, and you need to be ready.
Yeah. And I think that's the absolute key. You know, I talked about the clients who have the double setup with the websites. That was quite extreme. It doesn't have to be quite that, but you can very easily set up a totally separate web page on a different server somewhere else that acts as a very similar fallover, and it's getting stuff ready. Another client of mine, it's, you know, having the message banner. You know, our phones have gone down, our building, we've locked ourselves out of our building, whatever it is. It's making sure that you can get that message to the right people in a timely manner.
Yeah, one of the common things with law firms is that is their emails being hacked and then having the emails taken over, because emails are probably 90% of communication with a law firm and their clients. So what do they do if, in case their email fails over? You know, what are they to do then? And you hear horror stories. You see it on the SRA website. You know, so and so, or you know, this firm is sending out bogus emails, X, Y, and Z kind of thing. But I don't think they're as quick to react on their website either. And some of them aren't even savvy enough to put a message on their website. They just wait for clients to phone them to say, I've had an email. Oh, yeah, don't worry, just ignore it, kind of thing. I think they need to be a little bit more proactive if and when something like that happens to them anyway.
Yeah, I think it's always a good idea to the insurers to show that you own the problem. I've had to tackle it at various different firms and just said, look, let's just put up a news story and say this is what's happened. Yeah. You know, and have we had attempted scams? I can't even count the amount that we've had at the firms that I've worked at over the years, and like you'd expect it. But how you react to it, how you behave, says a lot about your culture. And being overly reliant on, you know, it being okay is another egg in one basket, right? It's just the wrong basket. You need to say this is not how we behave as a firm. The insurers are not going to pay your bill out if it can be demonstrated that you didn't react in an appropriate way, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, have either of you two been on a social media crisis workshop? Have you ever done one of those?
Yeah, I did one with you, Rich, about 7 years ago.
I feel like I do one most weeks with Rich. But
sorry, David. Yes, you did. So on that workshop was brilliant, though, wasn't it? Where everybody was like, "Oh, this is easy. It's really simple. You just respond to the complaint or respond to whatever the issue was." And it wasn't until halfway through it we learned actually we should never have done anything like that in the first. It was almost the gut reaction of what to do in a crisis. But yeah, so I'd recommend anybody who's listening and watching, if you haven't done a social media crisis workshop or you're looking to get one, I would highly recommend it, because what you think is a crisis isn't the crisis, and it's what's further down the road that just steamrolls in, like the boulder out of Indiana Jones. And yeah, what myself and David learned, and that day went, didn't it?
Yeah,
almost as fast as the 6 hours of the outage.
And some of it is just having the time to sit down and think, what's the worst that could happen? And that's where my zombie apocalypse came out, because, you know, we were basically sitting in a room thinking, well, these are the different offices we have. These are the different things that could possibly happen. This is what we'd need to communicate. Getting those scenarios together as well is absolutely vital. Have some preparedness. Yeah. And if you really want to scare people, do a dry run.
I've done one of those with the leadership team, and it was the scariest thing was the reactions of the people and how, like, just watching the politics get in the way of a sensible solution. It was astounding. So yeah, and just
did you get many people just going, "This will never happen to us," kind of Titanic?
Well, I'm not gonna. I've got to be careful because the subject matter is going to give away who it was a little bit as well. And there were a couple of things. I'll tell you another day over a drink, right? But that was very funny. But I just wonder if there's certain personality types that react really well to those situations as well. So with the greatest respect, you know, I wouldn't fill the room with project finance lawyers, you know, who might make slow and elongated decisions. And in the nature of like dealing with a life crisis, that might not be the best thing to do. But I do think having a mixture of, reputation management and employment laws are good in the crisis. You know, they'll put the kettle on and then calm everyone down, and they'll tell them exactly what they need to do in the next 5 minutes. They're quite good, actually, employment laws.
I think the main thing is having those people ready.
Agreed. You know, and not having too many of them.
Two, 3 or 4, whatever the number is. You know, they know who they are. they know that they're the ones that have the control during this situation. And hopefully that gets rid of some of that politics and bickering that can go on at that stage.
Yeah, agreeing a message as well. What, because that's part of the biggest problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do we say? And we have to get sign off, and that's where the whole decision, that's where the time is then just drawn out. So yeah, the biggest thing is what message do you say, and get that agreed in principle and ready. So when it does happen, or whatever happens, you're ready to put it out there to the, to your client and prospects.
It's really interesting because you talk about the crisis on social. I did a slightly more traditional crisis comms training years ago as well, and they were talking about how some of the oil companies. Do you remember, David, when the oil rig got?
Oh yeah,
landing on it and whatever.
Deepwater Horizon.
I don't know. But,
yeah, I worked for a company that was handling all the emails for the company that created the rig, or part of it.
Right.
And we were shut down. We were all locked down, stop emails, stop everything, and we weren't told anything, but it was all locked down. That was a company in Bristol.
But what had happened apparently in kind of like the control thing was that they had done the scenario planning, David, but they're flicking through their boat going, well, it's not that one, it's not that one, it's not that one. They couldn't find one that was there, and so they became waterfall in an agile moment. They needed to be okay. What are the core elements about how we react as well? And it's again another example of too many eggs in one basket. You've got this like zombie apocalypse, page 27, right? Let's go for it. That's the play. That's the closest one to what we've got here. But they didn't have one that fit the scenario, and therefore they struggled to react to the scenario. They hadn't learned the skills. It wasn't through them like Brighton Rock saying this is exactly what you need, or to know instinctively what to do. I just think it's a great topic, this one, isn't it? Because it tells you kind of how many things you do the same way every day. How many patterns, how many, paths effectively you walk down as a marketeer the same every day, do similar kind of things to each other. I know I feel like that when I read Rich's posts anyway on LinkedIn. So,
and I think we're not going to see less of this. Just thinking about the cyber attacks that we see. And how they can completely take out whole businesses. Their email, their web, everything could be knocked out. They are literally held to ransom.
Can we talk about that for a minute, right? Just one small thing on that. Everyone thinks that cyber attacks are from the outside. And the vast majority of those incidents, emanate from someone doing something stupid internally in the organization. It's really important to know, isn't it? Because we deal with the risk as if it's like out there somewhere. It's not. It's someone, plugging in a flash drive or, downloading something.
And that's the interesting thing. I mean, it's this idea of the hooded figure in the corner with the keyboard and the text and everything, a bit like the Matrix.
The Iron Man poster.
It just doesn't happen. I mean, I've heard ones where people used to drop USB sticks outside of a firm. People would pick them up. Oh, what's this? Plug it in. And once that's in and connected, that's it, done. All the social engineering stuff. And this is, going back to Facebook, those games where it's, what's, to get whatever name, what's your month of birth and your mother's maiden name. And it's so easy to start collecting some actually quite sensitive information, which you don't think about.
There's a firm called Think Marble that dealt with hacking, and I went to one of their conferences, and they had 2 ethical hackers, and they were in hoodies, they were up on the desk, and they were doing their stuff, and they just basically went through 4 very simple questions. They went, right, how many people of you are on the Wi-Fi, the hotel Wi-Fi? Most people's hands went up. Brilliant. How many people are on Bluetooth? Got their Bluetooth turned on. More hands went up. Okay, brilliant. How many of you have done some form of internet banking in the last 12 hours? Few hands kind of went up. And all of a sudden, he just went, right, okay, so we've got one guy who was at McDonald's on this time, and he's accessed this bank. And they just went through everything. And this was 6 years ago. So you can imagine the advances where it is now. And ever since that one conference that I attended, and I was just like, right, never having my Bluetooth on when I'm in a public area. I'm never going on public Wi-Fi and doing banking. I never did anyway, because I was told by a strict IT manager never to do that. And he never did internet banking anyway. But it was just the fact you saw these managing partners the blood drained from their faces. And they were like, oh God, but I was on the client's bank. I was on the, the firm's banking doing this. Suddenly phones, they were going out the rooms, making phone calls. Is everything right? Because I'm currently sat in the room and somebody's telling me this, and this kind of thing. And it scared the devil out of them. And that was 6 years ago.
I did a hacker conference. I went to a hacker conference many, many years ago. And those things are incredible because you can tell the people that are there more as guests, not really just there for a bit of a laugh, because they're the ones that have walked into this building with a phone, with a laptop. All the true people that have any concerns have left all of that at home. They do not go into this because it's a ripe environment just because they like having fun with each other. But yeah, it is so easily done.
I'm going to dig out the milk story that I found, which was a case study that I think, Rich, who are those guys? What were their names? Your guys that you just said?
Think Marble.
I think it might be Think Marble campaign as well they've done, where they pretended to be the milkman, but they just kind of gave the nod to the guy on the reception and walked into the back office and found their way in. Like, it just basically sat at an international law firm's kind of, IT systems within 5 minutes of walking through. And they say it all came down to a pint of milk.
You see this time and time again, the psychological experiments where it's either the white coat, the suit. You walk into a building in London with a smart suit, walk in with determination, and you'll be amazed at how easily you can get into places. Or as you say, go the YMCA route and try a hard hat or something else. And it's that strange case of authority that is just automatically picked up on.
Would you remember the TV show The Real Hustle, where they would do that? They would actually do certain scenarios. And I think there was like a night safe. They had a sign and it was a security guard, clipboard, signet, the whole 9 yards. And people were giving tens of thousands of pounds to individuals. And in one day, they got something like £80,000, took the money and went. And when they phoned the bank, they were like, no, that's not us. And why would you give money to a stranger? Oh, well, they were dressed in your uniform and pertaining to be them. And the other one was, how many law firms have their Wi-Fi router in reception? The receptionist might go off somewhere. All you've got to do is, like you said, a USB stick, or you can plug in next to it. Or some people go the extra mile, see the router, come in the next day, switch out the router, clients none the wiser, and then suddenly everybody's going on, and they are pulling tons and tons of data through their Wi-Fi network. So yeah, it's easily done, but some people are just very blasé about it.
I think next week I'm going to appear on here as Simon Marshall, just to confuse things.
It's too much reputational risk at risk for you to do that, so you're just clearly not going to do it as well. I was going to say the odds of Rich and I turning up in London in a smart suit mean that's pretty remote as well, so we don't have to hack our way into somewhere necessarily. So back on the main theme again, I think that over-reliance on some of the systems, I think LinkedIn feels like one. I'm going to make some proclamations. I think that LinkedIn feels like one that we would encourage people to go back and look at email marketing again, right? And need to go and look again at like how to engage an audience. David Rich, a former guest, Sarah Maguire, who you remember, has launched her email marketing campaign recently, who does LPAs, puts the fun back into dying, that's her hashtag. And I'd seen her do that the other day. I thought that was a really smart move to kind of do that and just engage people throughout part of the process. But yeah, I would suggest that anyone who just thought, well, we need to stick to one social or one system or one, whatever, one of anything from now on, I think it's probably a bad idea in comparison. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Even phone numbers, I think as well. You can have different telephone providers and whatever as well, providing things, and still be receiving calls.
It's single point of failure. That's what you need to watch out for.
Yeah,
and it can very easily sneak up.
It's talking about your little one now. Is she gonna?
She hasn't shown up. I think she's being fed, so it's been quiet today, which makes a change.
We've had a couple of comments from somebody. I have it great authority that a big threat is having your NFC feature always on is easy work for a hacker to steal 40 quid a pop.
The NFC with the phones, yeah.
So well, you pay 40 quid a pop. I think as of midnight tonight, it goes up to 100 tonight.
So I don't have banking on my phone. So I do have I pay with a touch credit card.
Yeah.
But it's in a sealed wallet. So even with the best technology rubbing against it to try and take the payment, it won't do it. So I always was paranoid that if I lost my phone, all my banking and payments, somebody could go around bopping it wherever they want. So
well, the one thing I did was one of the new startup banks. I had one of their disposable credit cards, and I put that on my phone. So even if something happened, there's never more than about 30 or 40 quid on there anyway. Worst case. But no,
Is it Go Henry? Is that what you're on?
What's Go Henry?
That's the kids' bank account, one where you top it up for them.
That's a good idea. I might give that a go.
I think you're too old. I don't think they'll let you in.
Didn't a child invent that or something? It's like the first bank. It was invented by a child. Obviously, it's proper or legit, but it was invented by a child or something. I heard one of them was.
Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
No, definitely.
We'll have to save that topic and maneuver it for a future show. What can law firms learn from children?
Quite a lot.
Can you imagine Amy? Amy is a senior partner at the age of 5, not when she's older. Interesting.
She might make better decisions, to be honest.
The histrionics are probably a little bit low to be a senior partner, aren't they? She needs to ramp it up a bit.
I tell you what, she'd have everyone sorted without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Dance to my tune.
Do you reckon it'd be like the Haribo adverts? Is it the Haribo where they had the adults talking with the baby? Almost like the Quality Solicitors advert 5-6 years ago, where they were, not legal jargon. We say it exactly how it is, kind of thing.
We're gonna have to do a future show, I think, with more of those, because we had some great examples of YouTube and just generally some really good marketing that came out from law firms there, which was fabulous. Hold on, we got one more comment. Yeah. I mean, it's the coffee shop vulnerability, which is always one of those key areas. Thank you very much for your comment. Right, we are coming up on time now. Any last words from either of you? I don't have any outro music, so just telling you now.
No funky music.
I think we've got at least 2 managing partners of different size law firms that are coming on over the next few weeks to talk about their views of what they'd expect from marketing. And I think that's going to be a really interesting kind of piece. And then I know we've got another couple of guests lined up, and I've completely forgotten who they are as well. So listen, all I'm saying is it's gone further out, but we're always looking for kind of guests who are willing to come along and test the limits of our knowledge on marketing or how we interface with other parts of the business as well. If you're in legal and you want to come and talk about your love for lawyers, then we'd always welcome you to come and join us as a guest.
I think the whole partners and the marketing department, that's an interesting one, because I know I've worked with some firms where it's been so completely siloed away, and then there's others where they have a pretty good idea. They work and play pretty well together. That's always nice to see.
But these 2 have got some great views on it as well. It's going to go really well, this session. It's good.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So next week we shall most likely be back at our regular scheduled time. I think we're back on Friday midday for next week. We may also have some new intro music. It depends what number Rich picks next week. And so until then, thank you everyone for watching. Take care.
Bye-bye.